Hi, hello there. Thanks so much for coming in. My name is Amori, and today I have some very important business to discuss with you. And that business revolves around a certain murderous little girl with some blinged out lemon pepper steppers who is so enamored by her own actions that she's obsessed with returning to the scene of the crime. And that little girl is Dorothy Gale of Kansas. Contrary to popular belief, children's media is not very fun and fresh. It's actually quite creepy scary. How do I know that? Because I was a child once. Don't believe me? Here are some quick examples of things that scared me as a kid. Number 1, James and the Giant Peach. Pretty self-explanatory.
I don't like that.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Number 2, Courage the Cowardly Dog, but specifically the Return of the Slab episode.
Return the slab.
Number 3, Pinocchio. Just as a concept, because I don't like the idea of a doll that I made coming to life and walking around. I don't want it alive. I want it dead. So if that thing gets up and starts walking around like, I want to be a real boy, that's going to be a problem for me. Me and my friends would have beat Pinocchio with hammers, I could tell you that much. Number 4, sticking with the Wizard of Oz theming of this video, the subway scene from The Wiz. Very scary stuff, okay? With the world of The Wizard of Oz re-entering the modern zeitgeist due to the recent release of Wicked in theaters, I was supposed to be Elphaba, fun fact. I'm gonna revisit another film that was clearly created to scar little children, and that is Disney's often overlooked smash flop, 1985's The Return to Oz, which is actually a direct unofficial sequel to the original 1939 MGM production. Interestingly enough, I feel like the thing that holds this movie back the most is the fact that they made it a sequel. I feel like it should have been its own thing, but I'll elaborate on that a little bit later. But for now, let's get into it. I am Professor Mori. You can tell that I'm a professor because I have a suit jacket on and my glasses, which clearly screams intelligence and opulence, and you have to listen to me now. So, there's that. Before we get into the hypothetical meat and potatoes of the film, I thought I'd stop by to share with you all some background. Back in the 1930s, the rights to adapt the original Oz novels written by author L. Frank Baum became available for purchase, and movie studio MGM, now known as Amazon MGM Studios, yikes, beat out Disney and went on to create the 1939 classic film starring Judy Garland. Now, the mouse, he didn't like that, so he patiently waited for his time to strike and get a piece of the Oz pie. His moment would come in 1954 when the rights to 11 of the Oz novels became available for purchase, and Disney himself snatched them things right up. Now, Walt Disney was really interested in the Oz properties, and he wanted to use the rights that he had purchased to develop some sort of TV show or something like that, but unfortunately that never materialized. And then with the passing of Walt Disney in 1966, the plans for Disney to do anything with the Oz properties largely fizzled out. Fast forward to the year 1980, and Disney has to do something with the rights that they own, or else their copyright is going to expire. Enter the film's director, Walter Murch. Now, Walter Murch was not and is not a director. What I mean by this is that to this day, Return to Oz is his only feature-length professional directing credit. But that doesn't mean that he just came out of nowhere. Murch had actually made a name for himself in the industry by working in the sound department on major motion pictures like The Godfather Part 2 and Apocalypse Now. He had a lot of friends in high places. So one day he was in a meeting with Disney executives and he expressed interest in adapting the Oz properties into a new film. Disney knew that their copyright claim was about to expire and they had to do something with the rights. Thus, Return to Oz was born and Murch was set to direct. Filming began on February 20th of 1984 and finished in October of that same year. The film would go on to star newcomer Fairuza Balk, aka Vicky Valancourt from The Waterboy, aka Nancy Downs from The Craft. Right. Although the final product looks really great and they did some really amazing things with puppetry and practical effects, filming was not all hunky-dory. At one point early into the production, Disney actually fired the film's director, stating that they didn't like how they were falling behind schedule and they didn't like the dailies that they received from set. Luckily, my boy Murch has some friends in very high places, and he was able to call upon his buddy, George Lucas, aka the producer of one of the most influential properties ever created, Howard the Duck. Right. Lucas went to Disney and urged them to rehire Merc. He even put himself up as collateral, saying that if things don't go right, he himself will step in and finish the film, which is a big deal because by this point, Lucas famously had fallen out of love with directing. Ultimately, Disney ended up rehiring Merc and they went on to finish the film as planned. All right, that is all I got for y'all. Thanks so much for listening. Professor Maury is out. Bye-bye. Wow. Thanks so much, Professor Maury. I learned so many neat and interesting things. I will certainly be giving you 5 stars on Rate My Professor. Now let's talk about the film itself and why it's really good, but creepy, scary. The good, the bad, and the scary. I do want to preface by saying this is not the first time I've seen this movie. I was one of the few that was blessed to see it as a child, even though whenever I bring it up to anybody today, they've never heard of its existence. And all I remember is watching it and being like, who is that? That's not Dorothy. I think I had object permanence issues or something as a kid because I genuinely could not comprehend how 2 actors could play the same character. That's why when Return to Halloween Town came out, I did not think it was canon because that's not Marnie. That's just some girl. Whereas the first film is filled with love and light and joy, its spiritual successor is the complete opposite. The film opens with Dorothy Gale back in Kansas living with her aunt and uncle. It's like 1 a.m. and everyone is worried about Dorothy because she's been having difficulty sleeping since that tornado ripped through their home 6 months ago and destroyed their old house. She's been up all night and all she talks about is this magical place called Oz. I don't know. Pause. Why does Dorothy's uncle low-key look like Hugh Jackman's old man Tethered? Do you see it? Do you see it? I'm not crazy. I know you see it. All right. Her uncle picks up the newspaper and sees an ad for J.B. Worley's Electric Healing, aka electroshock therapy. They want to send my girl to electroshock therapy. They think that Dorothy is crazy and needs psychological evaluation, which, fair. Honestly, fair. Now, the movie leads you to think that Aunt Em wants Dorothy to get help because she cares so deeply for the child. But I have another theory. My theory is that Aunt Em is truly just mad that she has lost her best child laborer because with Dorothy up all night, she has no one that'll wake up in time to help her on the farm. Whoa, Amori. Where's this baseless accusation coming from? I enter into evidence Exhibit A.
But you just haven't slept the night right through since the tornado. And then you're no help to me in the morning.
No further questions, Aunt Em. You're going to prison. Not jail, prison. They leave to go to the doctor and Dorothy leaves Toto behind and I'm quite devastated about that. But Toto, I noticed you got a little work done from the last time that I've seen you. Fur transplant, hair removal, eyelid surgery. They get to the doctor and it's immediately creepy, scary, bad vibes. And that will be the tone for the rest of the film. Every time I'm sufficiently creeped out, I will be adding some unidentified liquid to the nightmare fuel-o-meter right there. And the fact that little Dorothy's about to undergo intensive electroshock therapy because everyone thinks she's crazy, it might qualify. I can't even blame them 100% though, because the first story that she tells the doctor is this extremely morbid story about Oz.
The Tin Woodsman used to be made of flesh, like everybody else. But then he cut off his leg. He had a tin leg made, but then a witch enchanted his axe. And he kept on cutting off all the other parts of his body.
Electrocute her!
Electric chair.
So there's a creepy doctor and an even creepier nurse, and Aunt Em and Uncle No Name don't even look around. They're like, all right, sweetie, bye. See you when you're not psycho anymore and you can work in the fields, bye. And they leave. There's a huge storm that night that hits right before Dorothy's about to undergo her electroshock therapy. And the power goes out. It's chaos and mayhem, and this little girl materializes and helps Dorothy escape into the storm. They run away from the people chasing them and jump into this treacherous ass river, and boom, she wakes up in Oz. I wish that traveling by weather was a viable option for me like it is for Dorothy. The only thing that happens to me when bad weather hits is my insurance goes up, which I don't think that's fair. Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit of nightmare fuel for the insurance industry. We're not in Kansas anymore. Dorothy's first companion in the film is not her dog Toto because he's back at home. It is instead her pet, Billina the chicken. Right. She's a wisecracking, egg-laying Southern belle with clucks of gold. When Dorothy gets up, she immediately realizes she's in Oz because she's surrounded by the deadly desert, which turns any living creature that touches it into sand. Oh, God forbid I make the wrong turn in Oz and I'm turning into the Sand in Dune Part 3.
I don't like that.
Then she comes upon a lunch pail tree, which I'm a very big fan of because I'm sick of nature providing me with the ingredients to make stuff myself. I believe that it should provide me with the whole meal. Where are the burger trees? Dorothy is really excited to pull up to the Emerald City and reunite with her old friends, but when she gets there, she's like, ooh. Ghetto. It's a wasteland. All the Ozians have been turned to stone, and the place has been overtaken by a gang called the Wheelers, which are humanoid bike people with wheels for feet. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Among the stonified Ozians are her old pals, the Tin Man and the Cowardly Lion. Scary, but even scarier, why do they look like that? BBL, buccal fat removal, chin lift, tummy tuck, knee replacements. This ties back into what I was talking about earlier when I said maybe they shouldn't have labeled this as a direct sequel to The Wizard of Oz because sure, the designs look good, but you can't tell me as a child that this is Wizard of Oz Part 2 when all the main characters look like the vague essence of the people that we once knew. Like if I told someone to draw the characters from memory and put their own twist on it. It's just not clicking for me. Lore alert. Since the events of the first film, the Scarecrow has become the King of Oz, but the place unfortunately has since fallen into disarray as the evil Gnome King and his goons have taken over. So the Wheelers try to rock Dorothy's ship by capturing her and throwing her into the deadly desert and killing her. Right. But she escapes. They peep that she has a chicken traveling with her and start losing their mind because apparently the Gnome King, who's in charge now, does not allow chickens in Oz. I wonder if that detail will come in handy a little later on. Now Dorothy understands what's happening and she sets out on her quest to save the Scarecrow and all of Oz. So just like the first time around, Dorothy meets a gaggle of companions that she exploits and uses to help her along the way on her journey. New character. Her first companion is a fun robot called TikTok. He's a cool army robot that requires Dorothy to wind him up before he's able to move or think or basically function. Just look at this guy. I like him. He's cool as hell. So now the trio team up and journey to Princess Mombi's castle because they believe she's the only one who knows where the Scarecrow is. When they pull up to Princess Mombi's castle, she's acting like a really cool and nice lady, and that's because she has her nice face on. And I mean that literally. Mombi's whole deal is that she has a hall filled with hundreds of heads with varying personalities and levels of beauty that she physically takes on and off and changes depending on what vibe she's going for. So right now she had her nice head on. On top of that, it's revealed she's only being nice to Dorothy because she wants to trap her, and when she gets a little older, she's gonna take her head and add it to the collection. So there's that going on. Nightmare fuel. New character. While locked up by Mombi, Dorothy encounters a new companion that she's gonna add to her roster. Jack the Pumpkin. Jack Skellington, stand up! So yeah, he very clearly to me looks like Jack Skellington from The Nightmare Before Christmas. And I was shocked by this, and then I googled it, and apparently it's like a very common known fact that the design of Jack the Pumpkin inspired Tim Burton when creating Jack Skellington. I mean, they're both quite literally named Jack. Although I do love Jack the Pumpkin and the whimsy he brings to the film, I will be adding a little bit of nightmare fuel to the tank because he was clearly creepy enough to inspire Tim Burton. Jack the Pumpkin tells Dorothy about the secret potion that Mombi has in the castle called the Powder of Life that can be used to bring any inanimate object to life. Dorothy concocts a plan to find the powder, steal it, and use it to escape. Fast forward a little bit, Dorothy steals the powder, and now Princess Mombi's after them. The crew decide to throw a bunch of items together to build a sleigh of sorts, and then Dorothy sprinkles the Powder of Life onto it, sufficiently animating the sleigh and bringing it to life so that they could use it to fly out of there and head over to the Gnome King's lair because that's where they believe the Scarecrow is. Very much Dorothy Claus. Yes, ho ho ho, I'm Dorothy Claus. New character. The Gump. Like Frankenstein himself, Dorothy Gale has managed to come to Oz and create a living, breathing sleigh with the head of an elk and the body of a sleigh that can fly around and be used as transportation. Although I do grow to have a positive rapport with the Gump, he's just a chill guy, happy to be here. He's creepy. Why is he creepy? Because you guys know how I feel about things that shouldn't be alive coming to life. I didn't want him to wake up. nightmare fuel. With the Gump entering the picture, that closes out Dorothy's ragtag group of miscreants that she's gonna use to help her on her journey for this film. Oh yeah, and Princess Mombi sent a bunch of wheelers to chase down Dorothy and co, and a bunch of them accidentally fall into the deadly desert and, deadly die. So there's that. During their escape, eventually the Gump sleigh does fall apart and everyone begins to plummet to their doom. Luckily, Dorothy is not really concerned about this. She falls and is very chill about the whole experience.
It's all right, Jack! It can't be helped now!
The group lands on the Gnome King's evil mountain lair, and the Gnome King and his goons are down in the depths of the mountain watching their every move. When they enter the lair, the floor falls out and Dorothy begins to plummet once again into the darkness. When she gets down there, who does she see?
Dorothy!
The Scarecrow! Hold on. What was that? Buccal fat removal, neck transplant, cheekbone replacement, hair plugs. Turns out the Gnome King was just toying with her because as soon as she reunites with the Scarecrow, he disappears again because the Gnome King turned him into an ornament. So sad. Dorothy begins to cry like she's not some serial murderer, and a rock comforts her, which is quite beautiful, I think. The Gnome King is like, don't cry. Don't worry, guys. I'm a really nice and fair person, actually. I will give you the Scarecrow back, and all the emeralds, and Oz will be restored, all that amazing, beautiful goodness that you've come here for, under one condition. You have to play a game with me. The Gnome King was in his Jigsaw era, if you will.
You will each enter into a room filled with objects, and you each have 3 guesses to figure out which object I turned the Scarecrow into. If one of you guessed it in 3 guesses, wonderful. The Scarecrow is returned to you and y'all can leave. If not, well, we don't talk about what happens if you don't get it right.
The game seems simple enough, so they all agree. But what they don't realize is that the room is gonna look like this picture. Yikes. They start to go in and play the game one by one. And while each person is waiting, the Gnome King is an excellent host. He's being very cordial with them. He's offering them refreshments, which they decline, by the way. And he's chatting with Dorothy and he asks her, hey, why did you even come back to Oz? And she's like, oh, I wanted to see my friends and save the day. And he says, oh, that's a bunch of nonsense. Are you sure you didn't come back for these? This one he does perhaps the funniest thing imaginable. This man whips around and lifts up his little skirt, and on his feet are the ruby red slippers.
Didn't come back for these.
My ruby slippers!
No.
Okay, Mr. Gnome King, don't hurt him now. The choice to have the Gnome King wearing the ruby red slippers instead of putting them in like a rock case in the background is so wonderful for me. However, it does make him less scary in my opinion, so I'm gonna lower down the nightmare fuel meter just a little bit for that. And he does say, hey, I could give them back to you and you could click your heels together 3 times and go right on back home to Kansas and mind your own business. But of course, she doesn't take that offer. She wants to save her friends, blah, 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 blah. Now at this point, everyone else has gone into the game and they've lost and been turned into ornaments. So let's raise that nightmare fuel meter right back up a little bit because people are dying. Dorothy finally goes to play the game. And Princess Mombi shows up while they're playing and her and the Gnome King are gabbing about being evil. He reveals that once he wins the game, there will be no one left that remembers Oz and he will finally be able to become human. I don't know the science behind that, but we'll move on. On Dorothy's 3rd try of guessing, she gets it right, and the Gnome King really can't be mad at this point because he turned the Scarecrow into the only emerald green object in the entire room. Yeah, Mr. Emerald Thief himself, I would pick the green object too. The Gnome King is pissed and he pops his IDGAF pills and is like, I know that you won, but I literally don't care because I'm evil. So there's that. So he starts growing big and monstrous and breaking things. Meanwhile, Dorothy starts reviving all her other friends that have coincidentally been turned into green ornaments. Then the Gnome King is like, I'm done with the games. I'm eating y'all. He goes and picks up the Gump and tries to eat him. And he says, so good. Next person. He moves down the line to the Pumpkin. He says, Pumpkin, you're next. He picks up Jack the Pumpkin and is about to eat him. But remember when I said that the Gnome King didn't mess with chickens? Well, this is why. Billina, the chicken, the legend herself, has been hiding inside of Jack's head the entire time because she's been so scared. Once he's about to eat Jack, one of her eggs rolls out of his head and into the Gnome King's mouth, sufficiently killing him. Truly one of the most random weaknesses, but this is the land of water melting witches, lunch pail trees, and the Wheelers, so I'll allow it. Here's what I can't excuse, however. After all this is done, Dorothy pulls the ruby red slippers out of the rubble and puts them on, and she just starts wishing for stuff to happen. And it does. She wishes for everyone to be safe and for Oz to be returned and the emeralds to be restored. And it just works. Somehow in the 6 months between the first time she was in Oz and now, the ruby red slippers have somehow become a harbinger for infinite power that grants its user any wish that they want. Or maybe it only works on her. I don't know, because I'd assume if it worked like that for anyone, the Gnome King would have used them a little bit more strategically. But alas, what is clear now is that the ruby red slippers are basically the equivalent to the damn Infinity Stones. The great evil is defeated and the Ozians are de-stonified and the emeralds are returned to the Emerald City. It's a beautiful day in Oz once again. The Scarecrow, Cowardly Lion, the Tin Woodsman, and all of Dorothy's new pals are all in attendance of the Gnome King is dead celebration that they're having in Emerald City. One thing about the Ozians, do not mess with them, because if they really don't mess with you, they will quite literally dance on your grave. Just ask Elphaba. Crazy. Everyone is so happy that Dorothy came back and saved the day that they beg her to be the new Queen of Oz, but she's like, no, I can't do that. I need to go back to Kansas and work on my aunt's farm. I can't do that right now. Alina the chicken, however, is like, all right, that sounds good for you, Dorothy. I'm staying. You be easy though. The little girl that helped Dorothy escape the psych ward in the beginning of the movie materialized. Turns out her name is Ozma, and she is the daughter of the previous Wizard of Oz and rightful heir to the Ozian throne. She had been held captive by Princess Mombi for many years in her Hall of Mirrors in her castle, but she's back and ready to reclaim the throne. Great! We'll just use this other child to be the new queen. Dorothy is returned back to Kansas and wakes up in the crusty, dusty mud. The psych ward was basically destroyed in the storm. We see Princess Mombi, aka the evil nurse in the real world, being arrested and carted away. Toto finally shows back up and he acts so happy to see Dorothy, but I know deep down he's like, you went back to Oz without me, didn't you? Yeah, I can smell it on you, you That is the story of Return to Oz, the deeply unsettling but wonderfully imaginative spiritual successor to The Wizard of Oz. Now, can someone please bring in the results of the Nightmare-O-Meter counter? Thank you. All right, and the results are in, and the meter is simply too high. I'm calling an exorcist. I think that the main reason that this movie is not as beloved as its predecessor is not a result of it being a bad movie. It's not because of the visuals or the storytelling, because all in all, this is a very solid film and it is very imaginative. But The Wizard of Oz is the great American fairy tale. It's probably one of the most important movies that will ever be made. So when a child or a lover of the original film sits down to watch a movie that's basically presented as The Wizard of Oz Part 2, and it's inexplicably darker and grittier, and all of the original characters don't talk and they look kind of scary, it's gonna be hard for them to get on board. Exhibit A, the Emerald City. Now, very obviously a main plot point of the movie is that the Emerald City is in disarray and the emeralds have been stolen and everything is crusty dusty on purpose. However, even at the end when the emeralds are returned, I just didn't believe it. It never evoked that same feeling of the Emerald City from the original. Exhibit B, the casting of Dorothy. Now hold on. Don't jump me. Now I think Fairuza Balk did an amazing job in the film, especially considering this was her first ever acting credit. She crushed it. They even had her doing her own stunts. They had this girl jumping into raging waters and riding a sled through a wall and acting in 20-degree weather in the middle of England. And she did it with no problems. However, objectively, she just looks so much younger than Judy Garland. It's not her fault or anything like that, but it's harder for me to buy that that's Dorothy when this is supposed to be a sequel. This is just another example of the two movies, they're not meshing. There's a disconnect there. Now, the argument has been made that this is a truer adaptation of Baum's original Oz novels, but I haven't read those, and y'all told me this was Wizard of Oz Part 2. So with all that being said, when I take away the context of the original movie and just focus on the novels or the story, I definitely fall more and more in love with this film. You can find behind the scenes footage of the making of this movie just on YouTube or anywhere else on the internet, and it's clear that they put so much time and effort into this movie, and it shows. The amount of effort that went into the puppetry and the visual effects is astounding. They had entire teams of people operating the puppets and the mechanized heads of Dorothy's companions. Even the Cowardly Lion, who was in the movie for a solid 5 seconds, had a whole team of people making sure his head moved exactly like how a lion would. For them to make TikTok move, they had a man in the suit with his head bent down between his legs and he would walk just like that. And it was so difficult that they could only shoot in 15-minute increments. It was so clear that the dedication that they put into this film was real. And that's why it looks so good today. I wouldn't say it's better than The Wizard of Oz. I will say that it is a very solid film and a love letter to the Oz novels. And for that reason, I will give this movie the Amori stamp of approval. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And if I was in the room with you right now, I would like to pick you up in my arms and swaddle you like a baby because you're amazing. If you liked this video, please feel free to subscribe, leave a like and a comment. I would really appreciate it. It helps me out a lot. And hopefully I'll see you next time. Thanks so much again. Bye.